Imagine sitting down with your morning coffee and opening an account statement that shows your life savings doubled again. For decades, that miraculous consistency was the exact thing investors bragged about to friends. Then, in December 2008, everything crashed. The man behind those flawless statements was Bernie Madoff, once a titan of Wall Street. On paper, he ran a $65 billion empire, but the numbers didn't add up. In the quiet hours after the arrest, journalists, regulators, and victims asked the same chilling question. How did a financial miracle turn out to be the biggest scam in history?
Bernard L. Madoff started small, a frugal childhood, a parking lot brokerage in New York, and eventually a seat at the table where the market was made. He helped create the NASDAQ market maker model, and his firm became synonymous with success. Madoff wore the suit of a respectable financier, philanthropic boards, industry awards, and friends in high places. That reputation became his greatest asset. Trust, once earned, made it easy to attract money. The question is, once trust was weaponized, who noticed when the machine began to break?
Beyond the headlines in courtrooms, the damage was deeply personal. Retirement accounts evaporated. Charities lost the funds that supported vulnerable communities, and entire families faced ruin. People who had trusted Madoff for generations suddenly navigated bankruptcy, broken homes, and shattered faith in institutions. The story reminds us that financial crime isn't just numbers on a balance sheet. It's livelihoods, philanthropic projects, and trust ripped away from people who believed in something larger than themselves. In the years after the collapse, a court-appointed trustee worked to claw back funds from those who had profited and to redistribute recoveries to victims. Billions were recovered, a fraction of the paper losses, but still crucial relief for many. Lawsuits, settlements, and lengthy legal battles stretched across continents. Meanwhile, Madoff died in prison in 2021. Leaving a legacy of unanswered questions and unfinished restitution. The recovery effort taught the finance world that justice can be slow and messy, but not entirely impossible. What should we take away from the largest Ponzi scheme in history? First, skepticism is a healthy tool, especially when returns seem too steady to be true. Second, transparency and independent verification matter more than reputation and social proof. Third, regulators and auditors need better tools and incentives to act on credible warnings. Finally, the Madoff saga is a cautionary tale about human psychology, about greed, trust, and the way prestige can blind even experienced professionals. If we remember these lessons, we reduce the chance that history will repeat itself. Madoff sold investors a strategy that sounded plausible and sophisticated, a conservative split-strike conversion that supposedly generated steady, low-risk returns. The math appeared elegant. The returns were reliable, almost boringly consistent even through rocky markets. For many clients, steady meant safe. But there's a red flag built into any promise of unvarying performance. Markets move. If someone is consistently ahead of the curve, that consistency demands scrutiny. Yet the story of Madoff's strategy wasn't about trading genius. It was about a story so tidy, no one wanted to unravel it. This wasn't a scam of strangers on the internet. The investors were wealthy individuals, hedge funds, universities, pension funds, and charities, some of them institutions with deep due diligence teams. Madoff cultivated an air of exclusivity. Accounts were by referral, and being accepted carried social cachet. Many prominent community and Jewish charities were hit hard. Because the referrals came from trusted sources, the pool of victims became a closed circle, reinforcing the belief that Madoff must be legitimate. That social proof insulated the scheme and made skepticism socially risky. There were warning signs, opaque operations, secrecy about the actual traders, and trading records that no independent audit could verify. But when a man has credibility and community behind him, small inconsistencies are often explained away. Investors told themselves the firm was simply doing things differently. Regulators and auditors occasionally probed, but found excuses and plausible deniability. The human tendency to prefer comforting explanations over inconvenient truths played straight into the scam's hands. It's a lesson in how cognitive bias can be as dangerous as any technical sleight of hand. Madoff's operation had two faces: a legitimate market-making business and a secret investment advisory operation that didn't actually trade for most clients. Instead of earning returns through the market, the firm recorded fake trades and fabricated account statements. New investor money was used to pay earlier clients, the classic Ponzi mechanism. An in-house team produced realistic-looking documents. An accountant who should have raised alarms instead turned a blind eye. It was an elaborate theater of numbers where illusion masqueraded as investment performance. Madoff didn't operate alone. So-called feeder funds and third-party managers funneled billions his way, attracted by the steady returns and keen to offer clients a prized allocation. These middlemen collected fees and, in many cases, didn't push hard enough for transparency. Banks and private firms also enabled the flow of cash and lent credibility. While they didn't run the scheme, their appetite for profit and reputation management choices helped it expand. In an ecosystem where everyone benefits from the status quo, nobody pushes too hard to untangle inconvenient truths. Harry Markopolos, a derivatives analyst, repeatedly warned the SEC that Madoff's returns were mathematically impossible. He walked into federal offices with detailed reports, even offering to show how the numbers didn't add up. Yet over several years, regulators failed to act decisively. The story of Markopolos is part detective story, part bureaucratic indictment. It raises a painful question. When the system's job is to protect investors, what happens when those guardians don't listen? The global financial crisis was the stress test Madoff's scheme could not survive. Investors began to ask for redemptions at rates the operation couldn't meet because no real trading profits existed. Under mounting withdrawal demands, Madoff confessed to his sons that the investment advisory business was a fraud. Within days, he was arrested. The confession felt like theatrical irony. A man who had long cultivated control, finally losing it when the market he had promised stability could not be relied upon. Bernie Madoff was arrested and charged with securities fraud, investment advisor fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering, among other offenses. At trial, the evidence was overwhelming. Fake documents, a paper trail of deception, and the testimony of victims. In 2009, Madoff pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 150 years in prison. For many investors, the sentence was symbolic. It couldn't undo the financial and emotional devastation. But it marked a reckoning, a legal confirmation of what a decade of lies had become.